If you've ever thought about how to take a more interesting photo of a regular everyday subject, I encourage you to go to the blog, unless you're already on the blog watching or listening to this commentary. And there's a picture of the same flower from a different perspective, and that is basically straight down. So what happened was I was at work, and I went for a quick walk around Theta Pond, as you've heard me say many, many times before. And I saw this little patch of coneflowers, and these are really cool flowers to take a picture of because the colors are so bright, and you get these this nice cool center with those little spikes sticking up. And I saw this patch of coneflowers, and I thought, well, it's overcast, kind of. It doesn't really seem like a great photo opportunity, but I took one anyway by just pointing my camera straight down and got like the world's most boring photo of a coneflower. And then I realized, well, wait a second. The sun is kind of coming up over the trees on the eastern side of this of Theta Pond. What would happen if I kind of pointed my camera in a different direction? So that's what I did here. I got down on the ground. I had my D7100, which made composing the shot a little tricky. I used live view, but live view is not very good on that camera. It doesn't have a flip out screen. But I used live view to compose this shot, and I realized as soon as I put it in live view that there was a really cool picture here. I just didn't realize it before, and it happened because of the background. So you'll notice all those balls in the background, those balls of light. That is because there's light coming through the trees, the magnolia and cypress trees behind this flower. And I never would have seen that had I not looked at this familiar subject from a different angle and used live view. You can't really see those balls of light if you're just looking through the viewfinder. Some cameras have a depth of field preview button, which kind of approximates this, but it's not the same. And it was an interesting reminder of the different tools that I have at my disposal, that any of us have at our disposal as we compose a photograph. And if you're shooting with a DSLR, I encourage you to try live view sometimes, especially if you have a static subject like this. If you're shooting with a DSLR and your subject is moving, it's probably not going to be great to use live view. And there's a lot of disadvantages to using live view. If you have a modern mirrorless camera, they're all live view and they're great. But if you have an older DSLR like what I shoot with, you are a little bit limited by live view. But there are some interesting things you can get with live view, like this shot here. Incidentally, it's impossible to get this with a mobile phone because you're not just blurring the background, you're using the optical qualities of the lens to create those balls in the background. And you can't replicate that with computational photography. You can't get the sharpness of the center of the flower. The foreground, the petals in the foreground are slightly out of focus. You just can't get this with a mobile phone. So it's a good reminder of why, yes, mobile phones are great. If you follow the blog, I have recently posted a couple shots from a mobile phone, but sometimes it's just nice to have a dedicated camera with a lens that you can use to compose shots like this. One other thing to note, historically, one of my favorite pictures that I've ever taken was of a coneflower, and I took it years and years ago, and it was the same kind of thing. It was a purple coneflower, and I got down low and shot at kind of an angle like this. And so this was in some ways a fun throwback to one of a photo that I've always enjoyed that I took years and years ago.